Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk about One Piece in the month of April. It's the final day of April. Is that perpetual cough, that pollen be getting to me whenever I go outside. I blame the pollen. But it is the end of the month, and you already know what we get into whenever it's a One Piece reflection. So let's get started, shall we? Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here. Welcome back to One Piece Reflections. I thought I heard something. Hold on. Nope, we are good. Welcome back to One Piece Reflections, where I, at the end of every month, reflect on the chapters that we get of One Piece throughout basically the year. And in the month of April, they were three incredibly detailed chapters in terms of us finally seeing what Norona Imu, the ruler of the One Piece world, actually looks like. His powers, though they're not shown in the fullest extent, and also why he is a Thanos level, Thrag level, Madara level threat to basically our main characters in the story of One Piece. So the chapters that we had in the month of April were chapters 1179, 1180, and 1181. And since we're on break, we don't need to worry about any spoilers coming out this week anytime soon, which is good, because we get to talk about the insanity that happened within these chapters. Now, I also have food on the way, so this session may not be overly long as they tend to be in the past. I may take a moment where I eat some food while I talk, depending on how I do it. But I'm not going to keep you guys here longer than I need to, but I do want to discuss the story and everything that has happened in One Piece as this month has gone on. So let's get started with the first one. Chapter 1179, Norona Imu Descends, is essentially the moment where Imu says, I'm about to go down to the lower world and leave sacred Marijois. And all the elders are arguing, trying to, except for Garling. Garling is the only one who's all like, hey, don't leave, let him do what he wants. You know, a god can do whatever he wants, so don't try to argue with him. While the rest of the elders, you know, like Warcury, Mars, and Ethan Baron, and Jupiter, and they're all trying to protest against Imu leaving, because apparently there is a certain limitation or a certain side effect that will happen when Imu leaves Marijois. So it begins with them arguing, Great Imu, did I hear that right? And we're in Sacred Marijois in the Hall of Power. You don't mean to go to Elbaph, do you? Please don't do this. You mustn't descend to the lower world. And then Garling just shows up going, and here's the thing, Garling does not stay in the room. Every single time we see Garling in the Room of Power, he's always walking into the room. I told you from day one, the moment this man became an elder, he was a dude that was all hands. He don't be sitting up in this room just waiting for stuff to happen. He out there working. Every single time you see Garling show up in the room with the elders, he's always walking in. He never stays in there. Told you this dude would be a problem. Out of all the elders, he's the one I'm concerned about the most, because he's the one most ready to leave and actually throw hands with people. But he comes in and goes, do not be so smug and secure. Do you think that the Holy Land can remain safe forever? With Shamrock's return, it seems that the situation is quelled, but the lower world's plan to starve us out still continues. Dignity and power will not fill our stomachs. What can we do on our own? What we need right now is the military might to keep the rest of the world under our thumb. And then there's the former Navy headquarters, of which we don't continue with that conversation until it chimes in and York is arguing that she doesn't have enough food and she's hungry, saying like this isn't very Celestial Dragon-y, and her ignorance thinking that she's just going to become a celestial dragon if she sells out the rest of the Vegapunks, not knowing that celestial dragons don't exactly like sharing their title with people who aren't already celestial dragons. So she's celestial dragon in name only, but not in privilege, not in power, just by association. Arguing, saying like, where's all the food? This isn't very celestial dragon-y. And Garling argues, I warned you about this, York. The Holy Land is under a food shortage. And one of the things that can break the siege is the Mother Flame. If you want to live like a celestial dragon, then hurry up and produce energy for us. And York is crying, saying this wasn't part of the deal. Needless to say, your original form, Vegapunk, is one of the rebellious forces arrayed against us. Consider this a way for you to take responsibility for yourself. And York just hangs up the phone. It's been one disaster after another, and it all started after the arrival of Nika. Is it coincidence or fate? So, all of this started... Hold on, let me come back, because I can't see. I don't understand why the mobile app for YouTube won't let me see what people have been saying, because I gotta redo this again and then bring this up. Let me see. Is that you, Flip? Is that you, Flip? Oh, hello. I don't know how much you missed. Oh, don't worry. I've just started. We're on chapters 1179, and I've just been talking about how Garling is pretty much the most proactive elder in this group. And I don't know how long you've been in there since I started this, simply because I actively couldn't see my chat on my phone here off to the side. Don't worry, that's going to be remedied very soon. But Garling is the one person out of every single elder that has shown up and we've seen that is so willing to not just sit on his laurels all the time, wondering, oh, well, we'll just let our subordinates do this. We'll let our subordinates do that. Garling says, like, y'all just let people do that stuff? Y'all don't actually go up and do it yourself? Because and I say this again, every single time we see Garling with the elders, he is not actively in the room with them at the start. He is literally walking in because he out there handling business. I immediately thought how interesting it is that York is still hungry as she is. I wonder if she's still eating for the other satellites and doesn't know it. I mean, Edison did say, as Punk Records was floating off into the sky, that since York is still alive, her connection to Punk Records is still active, and I wonder if it's retroactively, still keeping the remaining Vegapunks, connected. Edison and all the other consciousness of the other Vegapunks still alive. The functions of them is still ongoing, even though most of their bodies have either been destroyed or separated. So that's something to bring into mind. Like, no, you only heard the York part? Okay, so the York part. So what I've been saying is what I said, because I don't mind saying this again. We get Emu saying that he's about to leave. And we find out that it's a he. Saying that he's about to leave. And, Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter, and Ethan Barron, they're all arguing for Emu to stay. And then Garling comes in saying, like, don't be so smug and secure. Do you think that the Holy Land can remain safe forever? And I say this again, every single time this man is on panel, he is either entering into the room of power or that's pretty much the only time. Because the first time he was made an elder, he was walking in there. The next time we see Garling, he's walking in the room again. And now with this chapter, he's walking in the room again. He don't be sitting inside of the room in the Hall of Power with the rest of the elders. He's all like, y'all sit down way too much. I gotta be proactive. I may be older. I need to move around. We gotta do some work. I don't see how y'all stay in this one room and Mars. How strong is your legs? Because you never sit down. Garling is always entering into this room. Every time. With Shamrock's return, it seems that the situation is quelled, but the lower world's plan to starve us out still continues. Dignity and power will not fill our stomachs. What can we do on our own? What we need right now is the military might to keep the rest of the world under our thumb. And then the former Navy headquarters. And like I said, we don't get any more concerning the former Navy headquarters and what's going on there. And then York, and then you get to the point where I was talking about York, and York is crying about, like, not having any food to eat. I mean, while Lilith has a mouth, the new fusion has Edison's head, and, well, Edison certainly doesn't have a mouth. I'd imagine it can't eat or go. That was her role. That, I would not be surprised about that. With Edison's body, those functions should not influence York at all. But if York is still being influenced by those functions separated by Vegapunk separating his personalities, I got questions about that too. But going through all the York nonsense, York is crying that she can't have any food or anything of that nature, and then Garling sits down and says it's been one disaster after another, and it all started after the arrival of Nika. It all started after we ignorantly thought that if we killed Monkey D. Luffy in his fight with Kaido, then Nika wouldn't arise. But what we actually did was actually cause the rise of Nika again. Mars cannot sit down. I believe that on an SBS recently, someone asked Oda if that was the case, and he just went, sure. Oh, so Mars is just... Well, here's the thing, though. It's not that he's incapable of sitting down. Because in the panel, when Joy Boy's hockey went off and sent all of the elders back to Marijois, Mars was sitting down in a chair as everyone reappeared. So he can sit down. Because it's canon. It's canon. He can sit down. So I feel like Oda was just messing with that person. I don't think it's official, though, because we saw him sitting down. I got to remember what exact chapter that was, but after the elders were sent right back to Marijois, Mars was sitting down in a chair just waiting on him. And that's the only time we see him sitting down. So he got some strong legs. But ever since, and I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this for years on this channel. Ever since we started the time skip, and I really want to say ever since the events of Dressrosa, the world government has been suffering major loss after loss after loss after loss after loss, and it just keeps getting worse for them. The first time we see it, Fujitora embarrasses them by bowing his head, which is something an admiral in their eyes should never do, because an admiral who works for the world government doesn't need to apologize for their actions, because the world government is above any sort of morality or of any kind. So Fujitora and all of his men bowing down to someone else and begging their forgiveness and placing the blame on themselves and the world government was already a count against them. That's one thing. Then, the next moment we had was essentially... What was the next one? We had Dressrosa. We had... we fast forward to Wano, where they essentially tried to kill Luffy in order to make sure that his true power didn't awaken. The Gum Gum Fruit, now known as the pretty much Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. To keep that from happening, they were willing to anger Kaido. Permanently anger Kaido. Ruin his fight. Because they said an angry Kaido is way more preferable than this power awakening that we couldn't get our hands on for 800 years. That failed. And in the process, the power that they didn't want awakened or even shown to the world was basically out there. Luffy awakened, beat Kaido. Not only that, but Big Mom was defeated as well, which was already an unprecedented event because Big Mom is literally the living embodiment of a tank. That happened. Then Luffy's face while he was in his Gear 5 state is now his new bounty picture, therefore putting the picture of Nika out there to the world. So that's already bad. The next failing for the world government was them not being able to fully stop the message of Vegapunk, even though some parts were cut off and they were able to momentarily stop it by, shoving Emmett. A vast majority of information that they considered taboo, put out as taboo, and didn't want anyone else to learn has essentially been shown to people. Now people know of the Void Century. Now people know of someone called Joy Boy. Now people know of the will of D and the nature of people who carry D in their names, which is something the world government has been trying to cover up, either by killing these people or having these people be in indentured service. All this information is just out there. Finding out that, hey, the world used to be drier because the ocean has risen a full 200 meters over 100 years, which should be impossible, leading to the speculation of an ancient weapon being used. Information that the world government didn't want to go out there. It was so serious that every single elder showed up on Egghead to bring an end to this. That's how much of a threat to their standing it was. That's how much of a threat to their organization it was. They failed to do that. And they also failed to stop Nika. They also failed to stop Luffy and his crew. Luffy and everyone else managed to get out. They killed Vegapunk. Vegapunk died. But they don't know that all the Vegapunks not all Vegapunks were completely eradicated. To their knowledge, York is the only one. They have no knowledge of Lilith, and they absolutely have no knowledge that the clone that Vegapunk created for himself is still active as well. So they don't know that either. They failed there. They failed to bring down Luffy, and Luffy and his company escaped, along with all the giants. Everyone on Luffy's side escaped, which brought about the consequence of Saturn being basically whittled down to nothing as the very immortality was ripped from his soul, and that was our very first elder death. So they failed there. Now we're in a situation where Marie Joie is suffering a shortage, which I'm pretty sure no celestial dragon has ever had to worry about, because they're celestial dragons. Everything is given to them. Oh, I want lobster for breakfast, lobster for lunch, and lobster for dinner. And if you don't give me what I ask for, I will shoot you in front of your family. Better yet, I will shoot your family in front of you. And then, when you bring me my food, I will help you join them. And now we're in a situation where the celestial dragons can't get the food that they so preciously want because it's constantly being sabotaged. And now they're going through a food shortage. Celestial dragons experiencing something that those in the lower world experience almost every day. Oftentimes nations who experience it as a normal thing for them. Hunger, starvation, lack. Now they're in that situation. Every single time the world government tries to eke out a win for itself, it comes back to bite them in the behind. And they haven't been able to recover since. They haven't been able to recover ever since Dressrosa. They haven't recovered since Wano. They haven't recovered since the Reverie, because a lot went on with the Reverie, including someone discovering Imu's presence. Sure, they killed Cobra, but Sabo fully knows what Imu looks like now, and knows that there's someone who rules the empty throne, so that knowledge is out there. They were unable to kill Sabo, so he got away with that knowledge. Wapol knows, but they don't know that Wapol knows. So Wapol is safe for the time being. The information of Nika, the Void Century, the fact that there was a war going on that caused the sea levels to rise and that the world itself is slowly sinking into the sea, the fact that Lelouja is gone. All these things that would have been kept under wraps is now public knowledge. With Elizabello saying like, hey, send someone out to find Lelouja. Because I didn't forget about that. King Elizabello sent some of his people out to go confirm the disappearance of Lelouja. And if it is confirmed by Elizabello, then that is going to be known to every other kingdom that, hey, everything that Vegapunk said was right. Which means we ain't got a lot of time to figure out what we're going to do if our kingdoms get submerged underwater. Because not every nation has the benefit of Wano or Water 7 of being basically entire areas that are adapted to, higher elevations when it comes to water. Wano is pretty much one of the best nations that you don't have to worry about, simply because it's already up on a higher plateau, and it's already used to being high up away from the rest of the sea. It's fine. Then you got Skypiea, an entire nation just in the clouds. They ain't got to worry about that. Stream had crashed for you. Oh, hold on. I'm getting a call. Give me one quick second, everyone. I will be right back. Yeah, I'll be right back. All right, I am back. And I am moving my food closer to me. Mac and cheese. Okay, getting back to it. The world government has truly been suffering loss after loss after loss with really no big major win in sight. And things just seem to be getting worse for them. But we get Jupiter, who's still trying to tell Emu, be that as it may, great Emu, you should not leave Pangea Castle. We can send the Navy admirals from headquarters to Elbaph. And then Ethan Baron goes, no, just count the number of situations we're dealing with right now. There's too much going on. By the way, just looked it up. Seems someone asked if the reason Marcus Mars is always standing up is because he forgot his homework and the teacher yelled at him to stand up. Oda simply went with it. So now, to ensure he never forgets his homework, even in his old age, he stands up. as perpetual punishment for missing his homework as a kid. That's crazy. But Ethan Barron says, no, just count the number of situations we're dealing with right now. There's too much going on. There's a whole bunch of extra stuff going on in Marie Joie. You know, the situation that Shamrock had to come back to and deal with, which I really hope we get a glimpse into what that actually was. Was Marie Joie assaulted by someone? Was there a rebellion of people who were still there? Because I'm pretty sure the revolutionaries were unable to rescue every single enslaved person there in Marie Joie. So what was it? Like a sudden uprising for those who were unable to get freed? It could be any number of things, because with people screaming, it could be like an actual act of rebellion from all the enslaved people that were still there after the revolutionaries came by. That, or there's a teacher around Pangea Castle who he has to give homework to. Even, so that means this dude ain't never graduate. If he still got homework that he still has to pass, that other person must be under a covenant by Emu in order for them to be immortal, for them to still be waiting on that homework from Mars. But any number of things could be happening in Marie Joie right now. Could be an uprising for the enslaved people. Could be the revolutionaries assaulting Marie Joie right now, trying to go for another round. Or it could be the Blackbeard pirates, but that one is way off into left field, so I'm not too worried about it. Then Warcury stands up and goes, then we should head into the field again. Mind you, the last time he headed into the field, they all got forcibly teleported back to Marie Joie with haki that even they themselves could not resist against and comprehend. That's how powerful Joy Boy's haki is. Mind you, Luffy has a long way to go before his haki is capable of traversing across the entire planet. Yo, Finding, it's good to see you. Welcome back. Yep, it's that time in the month again. But, Emu says this is no longer coincidence, Warcury. Arrogance, sloth, detachment, pride casteth away these things at once. All is preordained. And Emu is thinking of Rocks, thinking of Roger, Shirahoshi, Shanks, Harold, Loki, Whitebeard, Luffy, Blackbeard. All these individuals. Yeah, all these individuals. And then thinking back to Cobra. Slicing apart the wanted posters of Luffy, and slicing apart the poster of Blackbeard, Joy Boy, Davy Jones. Still you continue to torment Mu. I desire Vivi. It all began long before this. And Emu is preparing to just straight up leave. Blackbeard is not too out of left field. Remember that Lafitte is in the town below the Red Line entrance. Right, I say it's out of left field, but not out of the realm of possibility. Because, remember, the last time we saw Blackbeard, he was telling Lafitte at that port to get ready. And we haven't seen Blackbeard since. We haven't seen him move since. We've been focused on Luffy and company in Elbaph, and the history of Rocks, and the history of Loki, and the history of Harold. We haven't seen Blackbeard since. And that should be cause for concern. Because when this dude is moving in the shadows, I mean, we lost Ace as a result. We lost Whitebeard as a result. We almost lost Garp, but Garp is just built different, so they're just going to use him. He usurped the entire position of Whitebeard, became a brand new Yonko because of not only the people following him, but just because he is who he is. When Blackbeard moves, it should be a major concern because this dude is it's a split between his personality. Sometimes he can be jovial and haphazard, and oftentimes he can be so incredibly cunning that when his plans work out, you wonder, is this really one of the big bads that we have to contend with for the rest of the series? This dude is scary with how he moves. Like, dude appeared on Amazon Lily and was looking to steal Boa Hancock's power, and was only put off because of the appearance of Rayleigh, not knowing that Rayleigh himself considered himself unable to bring down Blackbeard because Blackbeard was way stronger. But Blackbeard didn't know that, though. That's the only reason why Amazon Lily is still there. So when it comes to things that are concerning Blackbeard, this dude moves in such a way that when he does appear again, everyone should be concerned. Sure, Emu moving and doing everything he does in these chapters is a cause for concern, but Blackbeard moving around and doing stuff, that's really cause for concern. Because when his plans go off, when his plans start, this dude is crazy adaptable and doesn't stop until he reaches the end of the goal he's going for. That makes him an even greater threat than Emu. Despite the power that Emu has, the cunning of Blackbeard is something to truly be concerned about. I'm still thinking that when Emu returns to Pangaea Castle, he'll be sitting in the empty throne. See, that's the thing. If it was a Blackbeard pirate showing up, and Blackbeard is just sitting on the throne going like, I told you I'd be back, or echoing similar words that his father Rox had said, and instead of him meeting a member of Davy inside of the Room of Flowers, he's meeting a member of Davy sitting on his throne, that would be an absolutely mind-blowingly epic chapter. If such a thing were to happen. So, let me continue, because mac and cheese does not stay hot for very long, so it's probably best if I get through this chapter, eat the mac and cheese, because my chicken wraps, they're cold, and I can just eat them later on. So the mac and cheese will take priority after this chapter is done. And I'll still talk, and that'll be a moment where I can talk to you guys about this chapter and what happens in the next one as well. So, Emu says, it all began long before this. The Holy Land I leave to thee. And Emu starts to teleport, and they're saying, but Great Emu, in the lower world you are. And this just points to like, oh, there's a reason, there's an actual physical reason why Emu should not go down to the Holy Land. And Garling is the only one who's not bothered by this, going, we do not have the right to stop the Great One. But still, if Great Emu leaves this castle, no need to say it, we all know. We don't know, so say it! We don't know! It is by the Great One's design. None of us can prevent it. And they end their call, and Emu teleports away from Marigeois. And then all of a sudden, the clouds above Marigeois start to fill up the entire area. And then we cut over to Elbaph, where Gerd is holding on to Somers and basically just pulling him apart like he's some sort of magnetic action figure, with him saying like, you said your name was Gerd, I'll remember that. You better watch yourself, because I'll personally see to it that you experience a miserable death, you wretch. And then we see from Goldberg that he's holding the heart of Somers, going, you should look at this too. And Somers' heart is just made of steel. There are times when I search for steel, the riddle of steel. And the other thing I'm concerned about, also Giuseppe, hello, hi, how are you? We're discussing the chapters of One Piece in the month of April. The other things I'm concerned about is how he seems to be following Rox's plan, and Rox wanted 2 devil fruits, which seem to be the Yami Yami no Mi and the Ryo Ryo no Mi model Needhogger. Blackbeard is just missing the best Zoan. So, the scary thing is, you have the Hito Hito no Mi mythical type model Nika, and then you have the Ryo Ryo no Mi mythical type model Needhogger. Both of these are incredibly powerful devil fruits, with one of them requiring an ancient giant in order to access the fullest extent of its power. So if Rox was trying to get his hands on both of those fruits, one he was going to give to Harold, so that way Harold could access his fullest power, and if Rox was going to be going after the Yami Yami no Mi, I truly wonder what his plan would have been. Do you remember that you played Bayonetta 3? Yep, I also remembered going out of my way to try and do that one Rodan mission in order for me to fully unlock Rodan as a contract that can fight alongside me. And when I did, it was literally one of the best feelings ever because that was actually the hardest version of Rodon in the entire Bayonetta series. So, yeah, I remember. I remember the days of me playing through it and unlocking all these different skills and everything. What was my favorite Demon Masquerade weapon? Rodon. That is actually my favorite Masquerade weapon. Rodon, actually. And if not Rodon, then my other one would have to be the what is the frog's name? I forget the frog's name because the frog had it where if I managed to get her whole song out, then she just made it rain poison. And poison was literally how I was able to beat Rodon. So there's first is Rodon, then after Rodon, it is the what is her name? Belial? I think her name is Belial. First is Rodon, then Belial. If I got her name wrong, please forgive me. But being able to poison your enemies to the point where they literally die, uh, and that rain can continue on for a very long period of time, it is status effects are not to be overlooked. But let me get back to this. Zoro's saying like if we destroy this, they won't be able to go back to normal. And Somers is pretty much confirming that if they were to destroy his steel heart, then Somers would indeed die. Then we're getting back with Usopp and Brook, who are being looked after they were blasted away by Emu. And we see Killingham strung up on a tree with his body parts in different places, being strung up as well. Yours was Simone, Cruel Altia, Ignis Arachne, Yo-Yo, Cassiopeia, Abracadabra, and G-Pillar. Nice. But we have Killingham being strung up by Sanji, going, I'm going to personally remember your name, Sanji, for revenge. Now say mine. And Sanji's all like, yeah, I forgot. Subject, hi! It's been a long time? Yeah, it's been a while. I hope life has been treating you well. You guys know me. I don't be like, where have you been? I've been looking for you during my reactions. No, I know life. Life be busy. Life be important. Way more important than just tuning in to me every single now and then. Hey, I'm just happy that you're here. And I hope things have been going well for you lately. But Sanji's all like, yeah, I don't know what your name is. And we cut back to Gunko as the ice block she's inside starts to break apart. And then Loki, who's already had his, well, not really had his fill, but he's at the school. Both Kaido and Big Mom were in the attempt of creating not just giants, but the idea of creating ancient giants, though it's failed. Blackbeard might be the one to succeed in its creation. That's the scary thing about Blackbeard. I don't put anything against him trying to get his hands on stuff. Because let's not forget, the way he behaves is akin to basically his dad's. This dude is always seeking out forbidden knowledge, such as getting into Impel Down, in order to get his hands on level 6 inmates, which are supposed to be people that are unknown to the rest of the world, but Blackbeard knows about level 6 and its inmates. He also has an in-depth knowledge when it comes to devil fruit powers and hockey and everything, and including the process in which to use 2 devil fruits at the same time, which in the history of One Piece is impossible. And he's the first person to do that. So, when it comes to the knowledge of Blackbeard, I fear his mind more than his powers. Because this guy knows a lot. Stuff that people should not know. He knows. Essentially, what Rox was always doing. So, when it comes to Blackbeard, I'm scared about what other knowledge he may know. And especially what knowledge he's going to gain from Caribou, since Caribou has been, keeping tabs on the Straw Hats' exploits ever since, Fishman Island. And we haven't seen him from Fishman Island all the way up until, Wano, when he was imprisoned in Udon, and then listening to all that information, learning from Big Mom, and learning from the rest of the crew, and all this information, and where they were going, and yada, yada, yada. All this secret information that Caribou knows now is going to become Blackbeard's knowledge. Do you think he already knows about what happened in the Void Century? I would not... On one hand, I would say I would not be surprised, But then it calls into question exactly how he came to know the knowledge of the poneglyphs if, someone like Nico Robin isn't on his crew. Because unless Pudding has learned how to awaken her third eye to enable her to basically read the poneglyphs themselves. Unless that's happened, I don't see how Blackbeard would have this knowledge quite yet. Unless he taught himself, and that would be crazy. That'd be crazy if he taught himself all that information. But do I think he knows about what happened in the Void Century? If he does, he ain't saying nothing because it has no relevance to his plan at the moment, which is a scary thing. The knowledge of Blackbeard, we only know what he tells us. That's the thing. But he's incredibly knowledgeable. He's incredibly knowledgeable. Somehow being able to keep tabs on people. Like the information of him realizing that both Kid and Law were awakened, and none of his people were around Wano at the time, yet somehow was able to come to the knowledge that the abilities of Law was already awakened. Like being able to tell that. Like, how do you get that sort of knowledge? Being able to tell that Luffy was stronger than he was the last time he saw him, saying like, you got more haki than you did last time. Literally, the last time he saw Luffy was back in Jaya, and this is during the Impel Down arc. He saw Luffy last in Jaya, and they weren't even at odds with each other. But he encountered him and saying like, yeah, you just by looking at him, just by sensing him, he could say like, yeah, you got a way more haki. You got way more haki than you did last time. Blackbeard is incredibly smart. It's just that his... Blackbeard is incredibly smart. Now, whether or not he knows about the Void Century remains to be seen, and I really want to say it's pretty much based off of whether or not Pudding has awakened her third eye, to which Big Mom wanted to use her third eye to read the poneglyphs and also find out how to get to the One Piece as well, because that's pretty much what she wanted to do that whole time. Also, what's my favorite Infernal Demon? This is gonna have to be a conversation that actually deals in video games because no offense, Giuseppe, but I'm really trying to focus on talking about One Piece right now. We can talk about Bayonetta any other time, but right now I'm just trying to focus on One Piece. But my favorite is my favorite is Gamora, simply because of the Godzilla style fights and everything, and also surfing on multiple boats in that one scene was very fun. It was very fun. So I like Gamora's my favorite. But back to this. It all really matters on whether or not Pudding has fully awakened her third eye, so that way she could read the poneglyphs themselves. That all depends. If he does know it, then it would make the idea of him directly attacking Marie-Joie make more sense. If it is indeed him that did something at Marie-Joie that caused all that turmoil when Shamrock left. If that truly is the case. But if not, then that's still bad because he has all that information and he ain't telling nobody. He ain't telling nobody. So that's the concern. Again, not necessarily. True. Yeah. Right. Not necessarily if it is him there at Marie-Joie itself, then it would make more sense. But it's more like, if it was, then it still lines up with like the will of his dad. Like the will of Rocks, that is. Going back to Marie-Joie like he said he would. Though he's not physically there, his next of kin is. So, but if he does know about the Void Century, I still think it would be bad for everyone involved because he'll just have that knowledge. And remember what Rayleigh said. We were pirates at the time. We know the history of the world, but we were just pirates. We just know the information, but it's not like we could do anything with it because we weren't scholars or people who were experts at it. We just learned the history of it. That's all. But for Blackbeard, he might as well remember missed my message? Did I? Oh, yeah, I did. I'm sorry. He doesn't necessarily need to learn what happened through the real poneglyphs. He just needs Pudding to read the road poneglyphs. True. Okay, yeah. The thing is, however, when it comes to Blackbeard, even if he didn't use Pudding in order to learn about the poneglyphs, my bad there, Flip, my bad. Even if he didn't use Pudding to learn about the poneglyphs, remember when someone asked Oda the question of, what would these pirates be doing if they had jobs in real life? And the job that Blackbeard would be doing is he would be an archaeologist. Just like Robin. His real life job would be an archaeologist. So I wouldn't put it past Blackbeard to try and learn this stuff for himself so he doesn't have to rely on anybody else. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, you are right. He doesn't necessarily need Pudding to basically read every single one of the regular poneglyphs, just the road ones, which is more than enough information for him to get his hands on. But if he did learn about the Void Century, that still wouldn't give us a clear idea of his actions or anything. You know what? I can eat and talk to you guys at the same time. Don't worry, I'm not going to be eating directly into the mic because that's rude. But I gotta eat my mac and cheese while it's still hot. And because the brother hungry. So, while Loki is eating himself some food, and as I eat myself some food, he's looking at the school going, why is the school frozen? It's not, I merely sapped all the heat energy because the Lilith is right behind him. School food's frozen solid, don't even taste good. And Luffy's having a hard time trying to bite into it because he's still suffering the drawbacks of Gear 5. And he's all like, gotta give some to Usopp and Brook. Mind you, he isn't trying to eat the food yet because he wants to give it to Usopp and Brook first. And Loki says, not until you get back to normal. And Luffy asks, hey Loki, that bad guy you froze, is she dead? And he says it's a flash freeze. It won't be fatal, but that only this guy can melt the ice. Don't worry, they're not going anywhere. And then the weather starts to change, and Nami sees that. Nami sees the weather changing, and then all of a sudden, a black pillar of flames shoots down from the sky and hits the ground. Then multiple pillars start to shoot down from the sky and hit the ground all around the Western Village and around Aurus Castle. And then the next panel we get is an absolutely terrifying magic circle above the entire village and Aurus Castle as a whole. I wonder if he already knows how to read them. Having Pudding there gets the world government target off his back. He doesn't need Pudding to awaken. They can just pretend she's how they know what they know. Because if Blackbeard is capable of reading poneglyphs and the world government gets wind of this, that will just increase their reasons of trying to kill him. You know, especially with Emu's desire to erase that of the Davy line. But if it makes it seem like Pudding's the one that's getting the information, if they were to get rid of Pudding, then they would just be like, well, he only has whatever information Pudding was able to give to him, so he doesn't know how to read it himself, so we'll just leave him to his own devices now. We'll keep a close eye on him, but we'll just leave him to do whatever he wants, not knowing that he's capable of reading them. If Blackbeard can read poneglyphs, that's already bad. That is already bad. Because you don't see Blackbeard saying, like, we need Nico Robin to read these poneglyphs. You never heard him say anything like that. He said, like, nah, we good. We're gonna move differently. The world government says, like, we need Nico Robin. Get Nico Robin. It went from, like, trying to kill her to basically we try and capture her because of her knowledge. So, Magic Circle appears directly in the sky, a gargantuan circle with these 5 points of black flames emanating from it. And Nami's trying to get everyone's attention, and then the flames themselves start to produce music. And as this happens, the buildings. Now, mind you, I said this over in Roger's server on how this power has the multiple abilities from different devil fruits that we have seen before. So, the houses themselves start to turn black up top. And just like a homie created from the soul fruit, they gain lives of their own and they start moving to this music that starts playing from these flames. And they gain like sharp teeth and evil eyes, and trees start gaining horns and big bat wings. Trees themselves start to be turned into like basically demon homies. And this continues, and they start singing and they start swaying with this music coming from these flames. And the entire area is just filled with just music. I want to call it evil music, just like horrifying horror music. It's just continuously going. And then a singular black flame shoots down towards Aura's castle. With Haki so strong, it starts to knock people out. And those with strong wills are capable of basically withstanding this. But people like kids like Kowloon, all the kids, they all get knocked out as this conqueror just emanates from the entire castle. And Zoro can tell that that's Haki. Loki can tell that it's Haki. Luffy is still in his emancipated state. And we cut to the inside of Aura's castle, where Imu has successfully teleported in the very same magic circle that Harold laid down. But not without cost, as Imu is physically huffing and puffing and visibly tired, and also coughing up blood as well. And then Imu starts to transform right then in the spot, causing such a titanic explosion, it takes off one section of the upper castle itself. Like, the explosion literally causes one of the towers to basically explode and shoot off. Then we get Dory, Bragi, and Yara looking towards where it is. And then the light starts to shine from the point of the 5 black flames from the magic circle beaming down to Aura's castle. And the trees and the buildings, they all get even more happy as Killingham screams out, "Great one!" And Somers goes, "You mean in person?" And we see someone sitting on top of one of the still intact towers of Aura's castle. And we finally get the reveal of Imu in his, well, essentially devil state here. Creator of the world government, one of the first 20. Power, the devil's fruit. Which makes this the first devil fruit in One Piece history that doesn't follow a double syllable way of writing. It is simply just called the devil's fruit. It's not just called devil fruit. It's not called demon fruit. It's simply just called the devil's fruit. And we see Imu in his full-on appearance, just sitting on top of this castle. Mind you, he's already of large size. Got a big giant staff behind him with flames. He's got the trademark awakened Zoan user halo around him, but it's not over his shoulders like it is with Rob Lucci and Kaku and Luffy or any of the elders. It's literally just like a full-on ring, like you would, like the taiko drums of Eneru. But instead of there being drums, it's a halo with multiple eyes that are basically patterned off of his own eye pattern, just across the halo itself. Long flowing hair. He basically has an appearance akin to that of Lunarian. One thing that reinforces this fact is that in the next chapter, when he gains wings, well, you know what? It's probably best if we just go into that chapter. But creator of the world government, one of the first 20, power, the devil's fruit, king of the world, Saint Norona Imu. And we see him here, and he has his hands up close to his face, and he's bleeding from the lip, showing that this transformation apparently still harmed him. So there are some drawbacks, it seems, to this, that we still don't know too much about. That alone was chapter 1179. Onwards to chapter 1180. It's kind of funny to me that Imu didn't know about Luffy until after Marineford. Like, you should have realized the stretchy kid screaming clearly not his devil fruit name all the time is Nika, since his bounty is 30 million. That's the thing, though. The arrogance of individuals like Emu and the Elders and even Celestial Dragons in the very thought that someone like Luffy will probably have no impact. Sure, we'll pay attention to the fact that he has D in his name, but he's not that much of a threat. Not that much of a threat, so I don't think we need to worry too much about him. Until he actually started doing things that started to really, really push the world government to action. You would think they would literally have him under his crosshairs when he set fire to the flag at Annie's lobby and broke out Nico Robin. You would think that would be the big thing that puts the target on his back. But no, it wasn't until he got to basically Marineford that the Elders themselves started to say, like, yeah, this kid's really been causing so many problems. Also, we need to remember all the other stuff that he's been doing, so now we need to keep an eye on him. Him defeating Doflamingo just put another target on his back. And him awakening the Gum Gum fruit essentially now made him marked for death. Simply because of all of that. Q, do you like Emu's design? Be honest. Yes, I do. Because it puts to rest whether or not Emu was a woman this whole time, which many people were assuming was the case. Many people. Even I, near the end, before we got the reveal, started to wonder, what if it is a woman? What if it's Lily? And she's transformed? But those thoughts were put to rest right as we saw his appearance. So as far as his design goes, which we get in chapter 1180 Omen, we see his entire visage. Tall, big cloak over his body with the appearance of the symbol for covenants printed on it. Extra long tail that has multiple skulls adorned around it. Though I don't know if that's part of his tail or if that's just part of the swirl mess that is part of his pants. But big cloak, multiple dots peppered all over his body with numerous lines, including one zigzag line that goes up the left part of his chest, up towards his eye, and goes straight across it. Mind you, we don't see Emu's left eye here. That's covered up by hair. And long flowing hair. And like I said, he has the appearance of a Lunarian because his body is shaded to a different shade, but it has a trademark white hair of a Lunarian as well. And he's standing there with this jagged slash curved blade as well. And you get these trees and the buildings all praising and singing Emu's name. Well, not really singing Emu's name. They're just singing with the music going on. And then Emu disappears and is immediately in the center of the western village and asks, who is the king of this land? And Dory and Brogy are going like, who do you think you are? This land has no king. And then Emu looks over at Somers, and in an instance of, I never thought I would see this happen, Gerd's fingers, her index and thumbs, well, index and thumb on her left hand, and her index and thumb, well, actually, yeah, just because I was looking at this incorrectly. Her index and thumb fingers on both of her hands are sliced, like the fingertips are sliced off immediately. With Emu just casually slicing them off without anyone even noticing, going, what art thou doing, Somers? And it's not until a couple of seconds later that Gerd fully comes to terms with the fact that her fingers have been sliced off. And she hasn't comprehended it yet until Somers falls face first into the ground, and then she responds by falling backwards. And then everyone starts screaming out, and then Zoro and Harudin prepare to fight Emu right then and there. The fact that this man sliced off Gerd's fingers without Gerd realizing it, and no one else could see it, Zoro couldn't see it, no one else could see just how fast Emu was moving. Let's see, it's very interesting because a few years ago I thought Emu was a combination of Maleficent and the Evil Queen. I still not given up on that, but the Devil's Fruit reminds me of the Poison Apple. The good old Luffy's mom theory, good old days. I'm still thinking Emu is a woman. The design we have right now and the one in silhouettes are very different, and Emu and Mu are at least different individuals. And I think we talked about this, Flip. I still think Mu is just like some sort of verbal tick, not really referring to like someone different, but just a verbal tick that Emu has. But Zoro prepares to face down against Emu, going, "Are you in the Knights of God too?" And Harudine prepares to punch him. All the while, Somers gets his heart back. He goes, "Either way, he's an enemy." And before Harudine can fully punch him, Stanzen comes in and goes, "Hold on, we don't know what he can do." And in the process of kicking away Harudine and basically saving Harudine's life, Stanzen's leg gets sliced through instantly. Like his whole leg just gets sliced off. "Stanzen!" And everyone's screaming, going, "Stay away from him!" "I'm sorry, Stanzen. Who is that?" And then Zoro uses, and here's the thing. Zoro uses his strongest style. King of Hell, Three-Sword Serpent, Purgatory Onigiri. Which is essentially him using conquerors to go along with this. And Emu doesn't even give Zoro a second thought. Doesn't even bother using his weapon to block him. Just uses his tail. Just casually uses his tail, and it blocks Zoro. All in the same moment, he puts his hand out and goes, "Omen," and a black flame appears on appears on his hand, and Zoro gets blasted back in an instant, hard enough to draw blood from him too. Then when Harudine comes up and tries to smash him, Emu goes for a much more improved design and causes an even larger Omen to appear and completely engulf Harudine in an explosion. So already, dude is moving like Madara did. Just engulfs Harudine in an explosion, and Harudine is just taken out. Zoro's taken out, Harudine is taken out. Then Emu creates this black flame that goes right above Somers, and Somers gets imbued by it as he goes, "Ah, yes, Omen!" And Somers is completely healed, with Emu going, "Make haste, Somers. There is little time." And they both go flying off in a different direction. And one more thing that goes into the Lunarian theory is that Emu flies off, and he has the same black wings that King does. So his whole appearance is akin to that of like half demon, half Lunarian in a sort of way. It's way too inconsistent. As a Zoro fangirl, I hate this. This is the end boss of One Piece. It's way too inconsistent to be a tick. I thought it too before, but it's such a big itch. The veiled no crown silhouette from last chapter means, unlike Loki's, this wasn't I haven't decided a design yet. True. I have no problem being proven wrong if the appearance of Emu is not actually his gender being male, because that's the appearance of this hybrid form, but it's actually a woman, and this is just the appearance that Emu takes on when in the hybrid state. If that's the case, hey, I'm happy to say I've been wrong. Until then, though, but as Emu flies away, Somers goes in one direction, Emu goes in another. The transformation of the houses go back to normal. The black flames that was all around, that's gone. And Emu goes flying off in another direction entirely. And Jarl is telling everyone, warning to all of Elbaph, some kind of being greater than the Knights of God has landed on the island. Be on guard. And everyone's all like, really? We just got done trying to deal with these fires. Emu sees the block of ice that Gunko is trapped inside and basically shoots out an omen bomb, and it blows up that block of ice. Then we get back to Gabin, who's near by the lift of the Sun World, He senses that haki. And even he goes, even at God Valley, what's going on? Even at God Valley, I never felt haki like this. Meaning that the haki that emanated from Emu appearing through Saturn during the God Valley incident, that was nothing compared to Emu actually being there. This Emu Elbaph design reminds me too much of the classic. My OC game character is a Saiyan with God Ki and Super Saiyan 4 and Namekian genes. Speaking of which, who's happy that Xenoverse 3 is being made? I know that's a bit of a diverge, but it's so funny that you brought that up literally not too long ago after the announcement of Xenoverse 3. But the haki that Emu was emanating when he was inhabiting Saturn, literally nothing compared to the actual haki coming from Emu's actual body here on Elbaph to the point where Gab is all like, I've never felt this before. Now, given the fact that he sailed on a crew with pretty much the strongest, I'm glad this fork didn't fall, with the strongest pirates he's ever known, you know, Roger, Rayleigh, and himself, for him to say I've never felt haki like this means that not even Roger's haki was this potent before. And we all know how strong Roger's haki is. Oh, you're excited? Good. But at the Walrus School, they're trying to heat up the food, but it winds up being charred. And Loki and Luffy and Ragnar, they all start chowing down on as much food as they can because he's saying, like, now stockpile your energy. I think we've got a real monster on the island now. And we get Nami running up to Jinbei and everyone else going, hey, what's happening? I don't know, but the haki is tremendous. If it's an ally of the Knights of God, they might be after. And we go to Killingham, whose bindings have been freed, and his body starts to fall back into place as a halo appears around Killingham now. Great one! Thank you for the omen. And Emu is right there in front of the Walrus School with Jinbei screaming, he's dangerous, Sanji. Who said you could release him? And Sanji goes up with Ifrit Jamba, and I'm pretty sure he's not using Diable Jamba. He's using Ifrit Jamba and tries to kick Emu. Emu literally meets his kick with his own kick. And when it's deflected, he manages to get the drop on Sanji, infusing what looks to be, because it looks like with this crackling on his leg, it looks like he's infusing haki into this attack as well. Emu just swings his leg around and basically hits Sanji and also causes the entire area to explode as well. If that's not haki, okay. But the whole area fills up with black flames. And then, when that happens, Loki steps in on the scene going, hey, what do you want with Elbaph? And Emu says, I search for the killer of my faithful servant Harold, who was slain here 14 years past. And Loki immediately starts correcting him, saying, he was not your servant. Harold was my father, the king of Elbaph. I like doing Loki's voice, like my dramatized voice of Loki. And I'm the man you're looking for. I see. If not for thee, all this trouble would be avoided. Here in the real world, you deal with me and Elbaph. Remember that, clown! And that's where we end chapter 1180. But yeah, Emu having Lunarian-like looks is gigantic and has Oni ancient giant-like horns, which are not present in the classic Emu design as wild and very original game character-like. You're not wrong. Going from the very simplistic, I'm just a simple, because who remembers Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends? And the simple design of Blue. Just a living safety blanket. That is essentially Emu's design that we have known thus far. Just one big mound, just one big shape. Little deviation for some arms, maybe enough for the crown, but the body shape does not match what Emu looks like right now. So it begs the question, everything we see of Emu right now is a byproduct of the power that he has, not his actual appearance. This is just a gained appearance. You do? Hmm. So this is just a byproduct of the devil's fruit giving him this entire appearance, meaning that none of this probably reflects the way Emu actually looks at all. Maybe hints and pieces here, but when it comes to Zoan transformations and hybrid states, more of the Zoan part is imparted onto the body of the individual. Though the shape itself will still be maintained, there's always the extra parts from the Zoan ability that gets added on way more than normal. Because with Kaido, dude had multiple horns, his feet changed, he gained a big old large tail, his size increased as well, and when he was in his drunken state, his entire visage changed even more, going from like simple some fangs here and there to just like a full mouth of fangs. He gained an even crazed look when he was in his drunken state. So my money is, despite how Emu looks right now, his regular appearance probably doesn't even remotely look like this, if the silhouettes are anything to go by. But this is where chapter 1180 ends, with Loki confronting Emu. So, for the last chapter of April, before we move into May, even though we're in Golden Week right now, chapter 1181, God and Devil, and also the reader request is with Carrot just still winning as the, king of the Mokomo Dukedom. Loki is reflecting on the words of Herald. I truly can't stop seeing Emu as a hikikomori. The Domi Reversi being an idea of a board game, I can't help but see how his powers work being like a video game. Kind of like how Shunsui's Shikai and Bankai, well, his Shikai is essentially like kids' games, and his Bankai is essentially the entirety of a play. But despite it being like kids' games, for the Shikai, they're all incredibly dangerous. For Emu, it's kind of like that, but not exactly. Because I don't want to draw too many parallels to different series, because I don't want to say that Oda's copying different series, even though I brought up, like Naruto and Sasuke and Sakura during my last reaction of this chapter. You are right when it comes to like how Emu's powers, like you have like covenants and omens and all these different things that you would see on a board game, or just something you would see as abilities that a person in a video game would have. Like being able to imbue someone with the ability of immortality and increased strength is literally a cheat code in a lot of old games in the PlayStation 2 days. Like for example, Marvel Ultimate Alliance has a cheat where your hits are insta-kill, to the point where if you hit a person, their body just disappears. Or you can make yourself just flat out invincible for Marvel Ultimate Alliance as well. Like a lot of the stuff that Emu is doing is akin to what you would see as cheats in old PlayStation 2 games. I can't see it as a copy, but Reversi is just a board game and it's been made dark. Yeah, right. I'm not saying that Oda is copying anybody. What Emu is doing is literally a perversion of what people see to be fun in a board game. He has taken the very concept of the game and twisted it in such a way that is malevolent. But moving forward, there's some good mac and cheese. Even though it's starting to get a little bit cold because I've been talking too much, it's still good. Thank you for your patience, everybody. We begin with Loki thinking of Harold saying, "That makes me the worst king in the history of Elbaph. So you must kill me to take the throne, Loki." And Loki says he died at age 144, but giants live to 300 years naturally. It wasn't his time to go yet. So I take it you're the one who manipulated and killed my father? And then Emu says the one who suffered the greatest setback was Mu. And Loki already goes in preparing to, try and kill Emu. Charging up Haki in Ragnir as well. With Harold, him thinking of Harold going, "Once I'm dead, my reputation means nothing to me. All that matters is Elbaph's future. Isn't that right? What the heck did you do to my old man?" And bringing down his hammer, he uses Ragna Izuchi, which now has a name. The time limit we seem to be getting with Emu reminds me of parental controls or how hackers have a short time before being caught. So with Emu saying like there is little time, that's the timer you're referring to, yes? But the same ability we saw Loki use the very first time he was free, where he took Ragnir and slammed into Elbaph, that always had a name, Ragna Izuchi, which causes Ragnir, who we see comically painted on the side, showing his face on the side of the hammer, getting charged up with lightning as he's preparing to bring this not only Conqueror's Haki infused hammer, but the hammer is also infused with lightning too. The very same thing that killed Harold. He brings it down towards Emu, and Emu just puts up an extra large omen ball in front of him and basically uses it to block the Ragna Izuchi. And mind you, in this panel, we don't see the explosion itself actually touch Ragnir. It's what you would see akin to a Conqueror's Haki clash, where their attacks don't actually touch each other. Yeah, the only difference is we don't see the heavens split from them trying to hit each other, but their attacks don't physically actually touch each other. So is this another instance of Conqueror's Haki users using their abilities against each other? Or am I just reading into it too much? I might be reading into it too much with this. But the fact that Oda specifically drew it with space in between, as if there's another medium in between their weapons and their attacks that's keeping them from physically touching each other. Last time we saw that was Luffy versus Kaido and Roger versus Whitebeard. We saw this before. By the way, Ragna Izuchi means either Ragnarok Hammer or Iron Thunder. Ragnarok Hammer sounds nice. I like that one. But the result from both of their attacks hitting each other is a gigantic explosion. As we see black lightning and, of course, the shockwave emanate throughout the entirety of Elbaph. People are getting tossed and thrown all over the place. Sanji, I'm just now noticing that it was actually Sanji who's getting thrown through the air, while Jinbei is defending, Nami and shielding her. Sanji is still down for the count, and he's going flying through the air a little bit, while Lilith is trying to grab onto Bonnie. So Sanji is down. And after Emu protected himself, Loki's all like, "Are you kidding? He blocked that? What are those black flames? What powers do you have?" And then we see that Loki is capable of doing yet another thing that we've seen in another Devil Fruit, which is essentially the unknown, unnamed ability of Big Mom, where she basically took a couple of years off of her life to empower herself and also grow to a much larger size. He basically takes these omen flames and then infuses himself with the omen flames to grow to an actual giant size. Mind you, not the size of an ancient giant, so he's only half of Loki's size, but uses it still to increase his size. I just saw that as the magnetism of a charged object. If it is Iron Thunder, that's literally just magnetic discharge, so I think that's not a Conqueror clash, just looks like it because of the magnet. That actually does bring up a good point, because I was watching the final season of Fire Force, and just the concept of heat and magnetism came up. So I was kind of thinking of that as well. So thank you for bringing that back to my remembrance. But Emu charges himself up with Omen and says, "Omen is my military might." Surprising Loki by saying, "You can turn giant? A power that lurks within all things." And he basically turns the black flame on his staff into an actual sentient mace that clashes against Ragnar. And mind you, Loki is still using Ragnar Izuchi. His hammer is still infused with it, and they just continue to clash with each other. And when that happens, Emu jumps up above Loki. He points the end of his staff towards his throat and uses a move called Blade of Judgment Nemesis, turning his black flames into a solid sword construct and stabbing straight through Loki, completely through, just impaling him. It is the nature of man to crave strength. Reminds me of Zeus and the Climate Act. Just the concept of a homie being able to inhabit the weapon or object they're in and also shape shift that same object. Literally that same situation. So yet there is another similarity to the Soul fruit. It is the nature of man to crave strength. However, when power so lusted after is too easily gained, corruption. And it shows Dorian Broggie choosing servitude out of self-interest. And then he basically turns his flames into a chain chomp and starts swinging it around. Choosing servitude out of self-interest. Covenants. And we see Harold off to the side with the Depths Covenant. And the envy that seeks to achieve one's goals. The power of Omen, which is essentially the power that Emu has. Which brings to mind the envy that seeks to achieve one's goals. So is Emu referring to himself as being envious? Because he's the one that has the power of omens. So does that mean he was envious of someone in the past that led him to gain this power? Which led me to my speculation when I did my reaction to this the first time. Hold on. All right. No more mac and cheese. My chicken wrap can wait until after. All right, I can fully focus on this. I hope Nami learned something from watching Emu fight. I hope so as well, because Nami has been having some really good improvements. Well, that explained everything. You basically lost the moment you have any aggression, though, and Emu Dummy Reverse Seed amplifies that emotion. I wouldn't say necessarily that you lost the moment you have any aggression. It's more so Emu plays on the greed of man that makes it easier for him to manipulate people. Because when power so lusted after is too easily gained, you often find many people corrupted by such power. Such as, like, for example, Reddit moderators. So many, or moderators in general. There can be some moderators who see the power of being able to ban people, or delete people's messages, or kick people, or have literally the well-being of people on a server, whether it's on a website or even on Discord, for example. You can have many people who see that as a position of power that allows them to basically do whatever they want to the people who are involved in this server. I know there was this one Reddit modder who tried to say, like, Reddit moderators should be treated like celebrities. And when people didn't give this person the attention that they wanted to, they moaned and groaned and complained. And basically, there was a whole scam going on. It was a whole competition, but it was also a scam going on. And this person, using the power that they had, allowed it to corrupt them and tried to erase every single instance of people trying to call it a scam. Essentially abusing their power. And now, this person is no longer taken seriously because that power essentially corrupted them. That's just one example. Yo, the new Tibet chapter reaction after this, I already recorded it. I will edit it and upload it after I'm done here. Don't worry, Rowit. I already record. That's the reason why the stream started at 1:30. So I can give myself like a good hour or so to actually do the reaction and have it recorded. So all I got to do is just edit it and then upload it to the Patreon for you guys. So don't worry, Rowit. I got you. I won't forget like last time. I won't forget. But you see the example here. When power so lusted after is too easily gained, like there's no moderation, there's no way of checking to make sure a person is mentally capable or mentally ready to receive such power. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. When it's so easily gained without any way to gauge whether a person is ready for such power, it can corrupt if you are not careful. If you lack the humility and patience to wield such power, you can be consumed by it. Let's see, I thought before that Reversi pulls out any latent potential out, Rox's latent potential was their potential strength and evil, which is simply not who Rox wanted to be. Awakened Zoans like Luffy, though, naturally have no more potential to bring out. See, the way I saw it, and the way I've always seen it, and I know you say you thought before, so you probably don't think that way now. But Reversi just feels more. I don't think it's really just pulling out the strength in people. I think it's pulling out the darkness in people. Not necessarily like the dark fruit, but literally bringing forth the evil and lack of self-control and malice and murderous intent that lies within an individual out to the surface. Because what is more demonic than a person who revels in chaos and misery and killing others? Because that's essentially how every single person who's been Domi Reversi'd has been behaving. And, going back to what Emu said, demons are the highest forms of life. That is essentially what Emu said. Demons are the highest forms of life. And what is more demonic than people bringing out their darkest selves, where they no longer have any sense of reason, and they just want to sow as much chaos, destruction, and death wherever they go? Which tends to be the manner in which people behave whenever they've been Domi Reversi'd. With Rox, he was just steadfast on breaking every single person that came across him. Not, steadfastly focusing on, killing both his wife and son, Eris and Blackbeard, but basically anyone that tried to stand to him, he went out of his way to beat them into the ground. Literally one-shot both Big Mom and Kaido while he was in this state. And all he could focus on, on the outside, was just causing death and destruction. Mind you, Rox was fighting on the inside. So it's more so like when people are Domi Reversi'd, that evil side takes over, but it doesn't completely override your entire, personality. You're essentially like Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Bruce is in the Hulk. It's not like he has no idea what's going on. No, he has no idea what's fully going on when he's outside, when he's buried deep inside and the Hulk is on the outside. He has some semblance of knowing what's going on here. When it comes to people who are Domi Reversi'd in this series, they know fully what's going on. And they have no control over it. They see themselves fighting and killing those that they care about and love, but they can do nothing about it because the Domi Reversi is literally clouding their mind and wresting control of their bodies from them. It's literally all the evil that they could muster brought out to bear on the outside. And thus, you are left to its devices. That's the reason why Rox was crying while he was fighting Roger and Garp. Because on the inside, he didn't want to do any of this. fighting like crazy on the inside, and the only thing that he could do from the inside was cry at all the chaos and destruction that he was causing. Because he didn't want to kill his wife. He didn't want to kill his son. He just wanted to put an end to this because otherwise he wouldn't be stopped. Domi Reversi is like a power-up you get from Emu, but with a kill switch in it. No, Domi Reversi is essentially... Domi Reversi is essentially you being put to sleep, or like being put in a trance, but you know you're in a trance, but you can do nothing about it. Domi Reversi is essentially just body-wide Kyoka Suigetsu hypnosis, where you know you're doing this stuff, but you can't resist it. Total control over your actions, but you are also still cognitive of what's happening. So all while you're being Domi Reversi, and this is the same case with Dory and Brogy. They knew they were doing all this stuff, but they couldn't take back control of their bodies because Domi Reversi was simply just had taken them over completely. They were completely corrupted. Yeah, in the same way Harold lost his personality for a time because the Depth's Covenant was deeper in. I wonder if Godosei's Abyssal Covenant just makes them fully evil. I wonder if maybe Saturn was good. I want to say no. Because most celestial dragons, straight off the bat, have absolutely no sense of morality whatsoever. So I feel like the way Saturn was when we first met him is essentially how Saturn has always been. Because the only good celestial dragons are all dead. Rocinante, Homing's wife, Homing himself, and Miasgard. All of them dead. One died because of his brother. One died to illness. One died because of his son. And the other one died because he chose to help people. Especially for the celestial dragons that view fish folk as literally inferior trash, he essentially helped, in the eyes of celestial dragons, trash. All because he wanted to have morals. So I don't think Saturn had a good bone in his body. Because remember, Emu said when power so lusted after is too easily gained, corruption. I highly doubt that Saturn was good at the beginning. If anything, these abyssal covenants that he and the rest of the Godosei are under probably made them worse than what they were. Now, mind you, I'm saying this and we barely have any knowledge of any of these elders from where they were before they came in contact with Emu, or how long they've truly been alive, because the furthest we've gone back to how long an elder's been alive has been Saturn, and he was still alive 200 years ago. So I'm only just saying off of speculation. Highly doubt that Saturn was actually a good person at all. If anything, he was just a normal celestial dragon, but these abyssal covenants, if they are capable of influencing emotions and influencing mindsets of people and influencing personalities, probably made every single one of them even worse. If that is what it does. His power makes things easier for you, but in a bad way, like they do feel good when they got reversied. See, here's the thing though. Celestial dragons were taught to be that way. They are modern. Godosei have been around since the beginning. There is a chance that the fully corrupted one simply taught this evil to children for generations. Yeah, which is why I go back to, if that is the case, then what are the odds that the Godosei themselves are the reasons why the celestial dragons behave the way they do, because they were the ones to corrupt all of them from the beginning. Think about it. If the Godosei have been around since the very beginning, then they could have been the one to perpetuate this mindset that the celestial dragons are gods, they can do whatever they want, and right and wrong means nothing to them, and that just perpetuates throughout the entire generations of celestial dragons, literally 8 centuries in advance. Shalria seems to be becoming good and aware. I'm not going to say she's becoming good and aware. I'm going to say she's becoming more aware of things that she probably was not privy to. All thanks to Vegapunk's message back on Egghead, because she was questioning, like, Void Century? What's the Void Century? Stuff that even celestial dragons nowadays have no knowledge about has now come to light, which could lead to questions. Questions that probably the Gorosei don't want to answer at all. Now, going back to what Subject said, the best comparison I can bring to the power of Emu influencing people and people who are Domi Reversied is essentially people who are Force sensitive falling to the dark side. Essentially that. When power so lusted after is too easily gained, corruption. When you fall to the dark side, and it feels good, exactly as Subject said, when it feels good to wield this power, Force Lightning, you can wield all this destructive power that you kind of really don't have much power over. It can be so difficult to relinquish that power or go back to the light because the power feels that good. My point is, Herald became very nasty, but he had his OG self lost behind it, but it still existed. Abyssal Covenants, though, is the next step. I assume their OG personalities are just gone or way too lost. If that is the case, then all the more reason why one should never get adept in the Abyss Covenants. And it makes me wonder if Garling has one at all. Could he be the very first elder who refuses a covenant? Because he already serves Emu. What are the odds that he's the only one that doesn't fall prey to a covenant and thus doesn't fall prey to Emu controlling his actions? Because I feel, even though Garling, is a celestial dragon and does the will of Emu, probably doesn't strike me as the one that wants his entire will overridden where he can't do what he wants to. I'm not trying to compare him to Garp, but it'd be funny if he turns out to be the Garp of celestial dragons where it's all like, yeah, you're not going to control me, I'm going to do what needs to be done, but I don't need to be in a covenant in order for me to do that. It would be funny. It would be funny if he refused the covenant and says, like, I'm indebted to you for the rest of my life, but I don't need a covenant. I don't need an increase in power. What I can do is enough. It would be funny if that was the case. But that's just me, though. But Emu continues, when power so lusted after is too easily gained, corruption. Choosing servitude out of self-interest, covenants. And it also points to Herald, who was willing to basically serve the world government and even embarrass himself in front of the world if it meant that Elbaph had a chance of becoming part of the world government itself. Of course, this was all a lie. So there's that. And the envy that seeks to achieve one's goals, the power of Omen. These form the trinity of what we call domination. And then he hits Loki with a full-on chain chomp explosion. Shall I give thee the power of God to step beyond all others? And Loki gets up and tries to hit Emu, but Emu jumps away. And Loki just says, I didn't ask. And Loki's just sitting down because, he's hurt. He got stabbed straight through the chest. I think Garling is probably the only one I can fully see having already been so bad that gaining a covenant changes nothing for him aside from power, which is why he's in the 12 people closest to the One Piece. My guess is the covenant is Emu gives them part of his power and it took over the person's mind over time. The downside is if that person is defeated, that part of Emu is also gone forever. You bring up a good point there. It feels like there's something on my nose, but I know there isn't anything there. There isn't anything there. Subject, you bring up a good point, because in these chapters, when Herald died, Emu was left huffing and puffing, saying like the losing Herald also causes also comes at a cost to Mu. So, when a person who's imbued with a covenant just straight up dies, it comes back upon Emu, and it hurts him. So, you're not wrong there. So, but the whole process of the shortcomings of his power, we truly don't know the specifics about, which is why I can't wait for that to be explained. Knowing the specifics as to what happens when a person with a covenant actually dies, beyond Emu taking that power back, what exactly is the consequence of that towards Emu? Because it does hurt him. It clearly hurts him, or heavily exhausts him, but it looks like it hurts him. And Emu traveling to Elbaph, there's a consequence there. He's incredibly hurt, coughing up blood. And even the process of transforming is also, painful apparently for him as well. Emu did reclaim Saturn's power, so yeah, it's clear they're connected. Yeah. It's like Yuhabaha giving out powers to Quincy's and then using Ashvalan to reclaim it back to gain even more power. However, if Yuha doesn't exactly do it right, he could wind up losing every bit of power that he's ever had. So it kind of reminds me of that. Giving out power, Emu giving out power also carries the risk that if that person dies and he doesn't take that power back, that hurts him. That's a strike against him. That's a physical ailment against him. Makes me wonder how many parts Emu has lost. Is what's left of Emu still his old self? There's so many questions here. But getting back to Loki just sitting down while Emu's standing in front of him. So your power is God's domination? I think you mean a contract with the devil. And then Emu says, God, devil, what is the difference? And then Loki prepares to face off him again, saying like, I don't give a crap. No one lords it over me. And then Loki standing there, hammer still imbued with Ragnar Izuchi, goes, domination is the only true bliss in the world. Isn't that right? And we see, apparently, Emu speaking to Joy Boy in the past. Silhouette, of course. And Loki prepares to hit Emu while Emu was straight up daydreaming. So it's like, bruh, you in the middle of a fight. How you gonna daydream in the middle of a fight? And when this happens, he screams, isn't that right, Joy Boy? And a big old angry face fault, having his jaw literally drop down half of his chest. He screams out loud as he screams and lets out conquers that Luffy can feel, going, more, gotta eat more, never felt this before. It's so heavy and harsh. What's with that guy's hockey? Can't win without a full stomach. Now remember, wasn't there a time when Luffy said, what in the world? When Luffy said that the intent in hockey, he can sense that? But Luffy goes, can't win without a full stomach. More. And Loki manages to actually hit Emu, going, what's wrong? Got distracted? Then you don't respect me enough. And then slams Emu and sends him flying across the entirety of Elbaph into the trunk of the tree of Elbaph itself. And Emu, just like Doflamingo, is embedded directly into the surface. The same way with Luffy's Leo Bazooka in Dressrosa, Loki basically slams Emu directly into the tree itself. And Emu looks up and sees Loki go into his Needhogger state and is preparing to blast Emu with Thorheim. Emu sees this and goes, Needhogger, and immediately puts up an omen and puts up a blast in front of him. It was either a blast or like a shield of flames as Loki lets off a Thorheim directly onto Emu. But Emu is protected because he covered himself in flames, going, so thou art back. And he's smiling. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. Gotta take the boys outside. I'll be right back. Okay, back. So we basically end this chapter with Emu saying, "So thou art back, Needhogger." Because I incorrectly thought that thou art back, and I thought, oh wait, is he referring to Loki or is he referring to Luffy? But in this chapter, we see a little bit more of Emu's mindset and how he behaves as an individual, and what he truly thinks is the power of domination throughout the world of One Piece. And also how incredibly powerful and destructive he is. So that's basically how we ended One Piece in April. And now we're on break going into May. So it's anyone's guess where we're going to continue from. If we're going to continue with more Emu versus Loki before Luffy shows up, I feel like things are going to get way more chaotic if Luffy gets involved. So overall, I liked these chapters. And there were many moments here that just blew my mind in terms of like reveals. Like, first, seeing Emu's full design. Mind you, not Emu's full human appearance, but their transformed hybrid state, as it were. Also, the fact that their name, the name of their power, doesn't play off the same way it does with other devil fruits within One Piece, but it's just simply called the Devil's Fruit. And we have no idea just how far a scope it is for this sort of power. It would be funny if the Hito Hito no Mi Maronika fruit and the Devil's Fruit are pretty much among some of the oldest fruits. The oldest fruits in One Piece that have seen very seldom users. And that's the reason why their power is so vast, with Emu's power being, held by him and him alone, and Luffy's power only seeing it in the uses of Joy Boy and basically himself. So I have plenty of questions as to like the whole history of Emu and Joy Boy, because in the conversation that we saw between Emu and Joy Boy, it doesn't look like it is one of animosity. It looks like one where Joy Boy isn't even in his Nika state speaking to Emu. He is literally just chilling, speaking to Emu in his, like regular clothes and straw hat back then. And we still don't have a good idea of what Emu looks like back at this time. Because you guys brought up that while the hybrid form of Emu gives the appearance of a man, or basically like a walking devil, we don't know if this is truly the appearance of Emu's physical body when in a human state. Now, given what we have seen with most Zoans within this series, especially awakened Zoans, they do tend to take on the body structure of the individual that the power is inhabiting. So I want to say Emu is a dude. And this just amps up his appearance when he's transformed. Because if it isn't the case, then that truly makes it the most unique devil fruit in terms of a Zoan, where it actually changes the physical characteristics of a person versus the gender that they are. If that truly is the case, and Emu is actually a woman, but this form turns them into basically a demon man. So there's lots of questions here on whether or not that's the case. That's just like a standing theory as it is at this time. If it's not the case, okay, I understand it. If it is the case, that just makes me more curious about the power in general for it to be able to do such a thing. Because the only way we've seen people's genders be changed within One Piece is literally through the powers of Emporio Ivankov and the Horo Horo no Mi. That's the only time we've seen it. But if that's the case with Emu's powers, then that's yet another fruit power or fruit capability that's imbued into this one. Because the ones I went down, let me see if I could actually find it. Because I wrote it in the channel. Not on mine, but someone else's. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I got to send this message. It's a very good thing happened today that you guys will learn about soon. And I'm just so happy. I'm so happy because it's been. You know what? I'm not even gonna give you any more hints. Oh, cool. Awesome. Calendar's done. Cool. But let me find what I posted. Sorry, so many notifications here. Um Here we go. Okay, so what I said was so far, Emu has displayed the devil fruit powers of the Op fruit, which is essentially spatial manipulation. Being able to use magic circles to teleport from one place to the next is spatial manipulation. The Soul fruit with Big Mom causing trees and buildings to come to life, also causing his own black flames to come to life and actually have a life of their own and transform, akin to that we've seen from Napoleon, Prometheus, Zeus, and especially Zeus with Nami's climate act. The Hobby fruit, which is essentially sugar can make people turn into toys and give them contracts and orders to do, which means that these people, just like those who are Domi reversied, are unable to resist the rules and orders that they have been given while under this contract. The same as people who are turned into toys and given orders by sugar is essentially the same thing with Emu putting people under covenants, and then depending on the level of it, they are unable to resist his will whatsoever. So the Hobby fruit is another one that we've seen. Then the Shadow fruit, manipulating his own shadowy body, such as shape-shifting that we've seen him do before we saw his full appearance, which is akin to that where we saw, not akin, but what we saw with Sabo and Cobra, and literally his whole appearance when he was looming over the empty throne when Sabo was in there trying to save Cobra. So we've seen that. Shadow fruit. Little similarities right there. Then we have the book fruit, which is essentially him being able to create a grimoire that allows him to summon any number of things out of it, whether it's a big knife or a giant double-barreled flintlock pistol that is capable of taking off the hands of an entire giant. So book fruit there, like from Mondieu. And then, of course, we have the bird fruit model Phoenix, which gives him straight-up regeneration. Even Conqueror's hockey imbued attacks from some of the strongest powers in the world in his lesser, shadowy self-possessing Saturn was not enough for it to keep him down. And if the people who are imbued with immortality is just any indicator of how much more potent it is for Emu, he has the regenerative abilities of a full-on Zoan. Of a Phoenix, no less. So that is the Op fruit, the Hobby fruit, the Soul fruit, the Shadow fruit, the Book fruit, and the Bird fruit model Phoenix. That is literally 6. I never put 2 and 2 together. 6. What are the odds that the amount of devil fruits that Emu has been exhibiting is literally numbered 6? Given the fact that his power is called the Devil's Fruit, and the amount of powers we've seen him exhibit is literally 6. I didn't even put those 2 and 2 together until just now. Maybe it seems, too a little bit on the nose, possibly, but that's the way it looks to me. So with Emu's powers, he's exhibited the capabilities of many different devil fruits, especially in terms of the Shadow fruit being able to empower himself and make his body larger. Because with the Shadow fruit, he's capable of, what if there are 666 devil fruits? That would be something. That would be something, subject. But here's another thing that makes his powers similar to the Shadow fruit, or at least parts of it similar to the Shadow fruit. The very same thing that Emu is capable of imbuing into his body to enlarge in his body and put it up to a greater size is essentially the same as Gecko Moria's Shadows Asgard, where he basically takes shadows into himself to empower and enlarge in his body even further. Him using Omen on himself allows him to empower and enlarge in his body even further. There are a lot of examples. A lot of examples. Mind you, I used that example earlier in trying to put it towards the example of Big Mom imbuing herself with her own power, offering up a year of a lifespan in order to grow larger, have glowing eyes, and be even more powerful than before. But it seems to be way more akin to that of Gecko Moria's Shadow's Asgard, because he's literally just taken the very power he uses into himself to be empowered. And Emu is taking the power of Omen literally into himself to be empowered. So, another similarity to the Shadow fruit. But it's still just 6 devil fruits that we've seen the replication of thus far. Which is incredibly interesting. But these are the chapters that we got in April. We've seen the full visage of Saint Norona Emu, the power that he wields that is so much, that is so high that Zoro and Sanji were easily tossed aside by him. Just think about that for a moment. Zoro tried to run the hands with another dark-skinned individual, except this time he didn't win. He got tossed. See, them allegations, they officially stop now because he found one dark-skinned individual that he couldn't beat like last time. So Zoro got tossed aside, using his strongest style. Literally meant nothing to Emu. Emu just blocked him with his tail. Just his tail. Then Sanji tried to come in, and Emu blocked him with the very same method that Sanji fights with. His foot just kicks him aside, like it's nothing. And both of them get bodied, and Sanji still isn't fully upright because when Loki clashed with Emu, the resounding shockwave knocked almost everybody back, and Sanji's body was seen flailing through the air while Lilith was trying to grab onto him, and he doesn't look conscious. He does not look conscious at all. We've seen him cut the fingers off of a giant before the giant could even fully realize that their fingers were even cut off in that instance. The cut was so clean that the pain came many seconds afterwards. The ability to basically create wings for himself so he can fly, imbuing the holy knights with their own personal omen rings that give them increased regeneration and allows them to be as if they weren't even manhandled by the Straw Hats and Giants at all. Killingham being able to have his whole body reform as if nothing happened to him whatsoever. Being able to create ginormous explosions using his omen akin to the bomb fruit. But I'm not going to say that's an element of the bomb fruit because, I mean, that'd be on the nose, and it would kind of ruin my number 6 reference for Emu, so I'm not even going to go there. But we've seen so much power from Emu. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. Let's see. Emu. Akuma no Mi. Not the International Mathematical Union. Emu. Okay, so the Akuma no Mi, just to give you a little bit of a reminder, the Akuma no Mi is a devil fruit that allows its user to transform into a devil at will and access numerous demonic abilities which they can bestow upon others in exchange for special control over their bodies. You know, demonic possession and such. The fruit was eaten by Norona Emu. Etymology. This ability's name is unique among devil fruits as it is a single 3-syllable word rather than word, not world, 3-syllable word rather than a 2-syllable pattern repeated once. The name is homophonous with a Japanese term for devil fruits in general. The only difference is that Akuma is spelled using katakana instead of kanji. To distinguish this fruit's name from devil fruits in general, the Viz translation has rendered it as the devil's fruit. It is the only officially translated fruit name to utilize the possessive, which the no particle in the Japanese name is for. So, of course, we also have transformations as well. I can move away from the manga page so I can fully see what you guys are saying in chat fully, so that way I ain't got to flip-flop in between. Emu's devil transformation appears to resemble common depictions of Satan, while his complete transformation is still silhouetted. He is still extremely large, being roughly equivalent to the Five Elders' massive mythical Zoan beast forms in size and occupying a considerable portion of the enormous platform beneath the empty throne. In the form displayed on Elbaph, Emu is several times larger than an average human, but is still much smaller than a giant. The transformation affords numerous demonic features and accessories, such as a pair of curly horns on the user's forehead, and a long dark tail which bears at least 3 horned skulls on it. I still think that's part of his pants, but that could be his tail and pants at the same time. The tail appears to be tattered, or has an essence which is not entirely solid. The user also possesses a pair of large feathered black wings that can appear and disappear at will. Emu's transformation bears a ring of black flames looming behind his head, noticeably different from those who have awakened their ability, who are decorated with clouds that float around their neck and arms. The other main difference is this ring of flames bears 16 eyes on it, which are identical in appearance to Emu's. Now, if I remember correctly, that's also the name that Doflamingo tried to use against Luffy in his final ditch effort to actually beat him. What is it? 16 holy bullets? God thread 16 holy bullets? And on which it are identical in appearance to Emu's. Smaller puffs of these flames have also been shown floating around Emu a greater distance away. The pattern of the flames, along with the eyes within, are unique in that they are not seen in any other awakened Zoan users thus far. So now we get to the strengths and weaknesses, and of course there's a lot of them. Strengths and weaknesses. Given the fruit's unique name and abilities, it is not certain if it can be classified like a normal devil fruit. However, the transformation and its numerous esoteric applications heavily resemble the rare and powerful mythical Zoan class. This unusual devil fruit boasts an incredible wide range of supernatural powers, and it forms not only the basis of Emu's abilities, but also those of his closest subordinates, the Five Elders and Knights of God, with all of these parties being powerful combatants. With their wings, which they can individually manifest at will, the user becomes capable of flight. The Devil's Tail can be weaponized as a fast and powerful piercing appendage, as demonstrated when Emu used his tail to impale Sabo, a Logia user, while the latter was trying to escape with King Cobra. The tail is quite durable and can clash with powerful blades. Zoro. Emu effortlessly used it to block an attack by Zoro using highly graded blades imbued with Supreme King Haki. Emu was also completely unaffected in his fully transformed state when Sabo attacked him with his fire, which he simply ate. Let's not forget, this man ate Sabo's fire. The user can summon a levitating grimoire-like book with a pentagram on the cover, seemingly out of thin air. From this book, they are able to manifest a dark-colored substance which can quickly transform into a variety of weapons, with these weapons being powerful enough to severely injure the giant Brogy. The user is seemingly capable of outputting a telekinetic force to attack from a distance. When Brook charged at Emu as he was possessing Gunko, the latter merely raised a hand, pointed in his direction, and struck Brook down from afar, knocking his sword from his hand. Emu then used this ability to redirect one of Usopp's explosion shots back at him. So that's what happened. Later, Emu was able to dissipate a lightning blast from Loki in his Needhogger form by holding his index finger to his thumb on both hands, similar to a ring gesture, and putting his hands out, holding the left hand's ring on the right palm. When Emu transported himself to Elbaph, a few nearby trees and wooden houses of the western village reacted to his appearance and transformed into demonic faces that began moving and singing as though they had become animated creatures, resembling homies created by the Soto no Mi. When Emu left the western village, the houses went back to normal. It is unknown if the user is affected by the standard's devil fruit weaknesses given the unique nature of this devil fruit. So that's a scary thought. It's unknown if he's affected by the usual weaknesses of a devil fruit user in general now, due to the uniqueness of the fruit itself. So, immortality. The fruit's power appears to play a role in the immortal body that Emu possesses and has granted to his subordinates. Notably, when Emu possessed J. Garcia Saturn on God Valley, he managed to regenerate with ease after being struck by simultaneous attacks from Rocks, Gold Roger, Monkey D. Garp, Edward Newgate, Charlotte Linlin, and Kaido, even though many of the strikes were infused by Supreme King Haki, which is effective against a Coventee's immortality. Abyss. The fruit allows the user to generate a magic circle known as an abyss, which can enable instantaneous transportation from one location to another. By summoning an abyss on the ground, the user can move themselves to any other location that bears an abyss. Additionally, the user is capable of summoning small abyss circles in thin air from their hands that can summon objects such as weapons, which the user can immediately make use of. When a user of this ability transports themselves or another person with an abyss, significant quantities of haki are shown being emitted. Emu can grant other people the ability to travel around through the abyss only if they have a covenant with Emu. Notably, while the five elders and knights of God have only used the abyss for travel, Emu can make extensive use of the abyss in combat. Covenants. By placing special marks on people's bodies, the user is capable of enabling them to access many of the fruit's aforementioned abilities. This technique is referred to by Emu as a covenant, and it can come in different forms. In return for sharing their own powers, the fruit user gains a special level of control over the covenantees, who appears to depend on the severity of covenant used. If the user gives a covenantee a direct order, they will not be able to defy it. Emu has shown the ability to communicate telepathically with certain covenantees and possess their bodies outright. The user can do this even when the covenantee is a significant distance away. However, the user can only use a limited amount of their own power through a possession. The user can manipulate the covenant so as to remove it from a covenantee and kill them. When used on J. Garcia's Saturn, the process involved a dark flame-like substance being emitted from and around his body, leading to him withering away and resulting in a large explosion, which left only his skeleton. The user can physically manifest a duplicate of themselves from an individual to possess them. When possessing Saturn's body on God Valley, Emu was able to manifest his own body from Saturn's back, rearing up above him as a massive silhouette from which his eyes and even crown took shape. While possessing Gunko on Elbaph, Emu physically emerged from Gunko's torso as an elongated black silhouette, and after being frozen, appeared to simply fade away, leaving Gunko instead. This manifestation appears to have limitations in what he can do, given that in both known cases, Emu only used this to perform Domi Reversi on his enemy. However, making a covenant with another person also requires a cost paid by the user as well. The specifics of this drawback are yet to be revealed, but after Harold was killed by Loki despite his immortality, Emu was in pain and refused to send any more Knights of God to Elbaph. There may be a limit to the number of advanced covenants one can give, as Emu limited his Depths and Abyss covenants to just 13 in number overall. Another form of covenant is capable of transforming unwilling victims into demons. The user can seemingly inflict this transformation rather quickly and easily just by summoning an abyss or manifesting tendrils to strike their target. Once transformed, the target possesses an immortal body and greatly enhanced strength, which Emu dubs the power of God. Unlike the recipients of other covenants, demons can't completely lose their original personalities and free will, becoming mindless and violent and completely beholden to the user's will at every waking moment. However, these demons can be reverted back to normal when struck with lethal blows, and some individuals like Luffy and Loki are completely immune to becoming demons at all. Curiously, Chopper is capable of restoring demons back to normal by simply attacking without dealing fatal damage, though the exact reason is as of yet unknown, and we still don't know how Chopper was able to do it. Emu believes that two of the tenets of domination play a role in these powers. Corruption, the result of a lust for power that is too easily gained, is behind demon transformation, while covenants stem from a desire to serve someone out of self-interest. And lastly, we have Omen. Omen is a black flame that the user can generate from their body or weapons. Emu refers to it as his military might, and has claimed that it is power stemming from goal-driven envy. The Omen flame possesses a vast amount of capabilities which enable it to be used for attack, defense, and support in combat. I can only imagine what a playable Emu in Pirate Warriors 4 would be like. Offensively, he can unleash massive explosions and take the form of just about any weapon, with its shifting time being so fast that it can become a blade that easily impales anyone in its vicinity. Defensively, it has shown itself capable of countering a strike from the monstrously powerful giant Loki wielding Ragnir, which came imbued with Loki's lightning and Supreme King Haki. In terms of support mechanisms, the user has been shown to use Omen to make their own body grow in size, even to the point of reaching giant size. Additionally, by being placed as a ring around at least Covenantees like the Knights of God, their bodies are given a boost in strength. And of course, we have all the usages, Domi Reversi, Diabolical Covenants, and then of course, Blade of Judgment. And the real, and I got all this information about like how it's all similar to these different powers. Here, it shows the Akuma no Mi has demonstrated various abilities that are manifested in other devil fruits. Trees and wooden houses reacted to Imu's appearance and became moving and singing as though they had become animated creatures, resembling homies created by the Soru Soru no Mi, the Soul fruit. The ability to form a forced contract between the user and their victims, which results in the victim's absolute obedience, can be seen in the Habi Habi no Mi and the Kage Kage no Mi, Habi Habi fruit and Shadow fruit. The ability to manifest shadow constructs in its victim vessel to control and amplify the victim's power, seen through both standard possession and demon covenant, is also similar to that of the Kage Kage no Mi. Using a book to manifest objects is similar to the Buku Buku no Mi. Utilizing a circular area for spatial manipulation is similar to the Ope Ope no Mi. Immortal leveled regeneration is similar to the Tori Tori no Mi model Phoenix. The ability of generating flames to various degrees, Omen Black Flames in this case, is similar to the Meta Meta no Mi. The ability to increase one's body size is similar to various uses of the Gomu Gomu no Mi and Deka Deka no Mi. Curiously, several traits provided by this fruit are similar to those naturally found in the Lunarian race, including dark angel-like wings, a flaming halo, and the ability to generate fire from one's body. Incidentally, the Lunarian race were once called a tribe of gods and lived on top of the Red Line, which was called the Kingdom of Gods. The current user, Imu, regards himself as a god and lives in Marijwa, which is located on top of the Red Line. So there's more than 6. There's the Meta Meta no Mi, Gomu Gomu no Mi, and the Deka Deka no Mi. All the other ones, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 powers he has. So that really just throws my little reference out of the window. But that's 9 powers from 9 different fruits that he's showcased now. The ability to alter his size and grow to an even larger one. It's not even just like a byproduct of like Big Mom's Soul fruit, but it's literally just the ability to manipulate his body and change to different size. Basically like the Gomu Gomu and the Deka Deka. That's the power of Imu right now. And we don't even know the fullest extent of what all he can do. That's the thing. And he's just up here fighting Loki. And I imagine that the fight is going to get even more intense when Luffy shows up. When he has his fill and he's just brimming with food. Because that's all it takes. All it takes is for him to just eat some good food. That's all it takes. I can imagine that Imu is probably going to showcase even more abilities once Luffy shows up. But as I bring this all to a close, because 2 hours and 22 minutes, I think that's quite long. I think that's long enough for me to say everything I needed to say. This ain't no reverie, so don't expect no 6-hour session. But overall, I really did enjoy the chapters that we got of One Piece in the month of April, and I can only imagine how crazy things are going to get in May. But that's all I got. If you guys don't have anything else, and if you weren't able to say it here live, then just let me know down in the comments down below, and we can continue the conversation from there. Overall, I enjoyed the chapters that we got of One Piece, and I am absolutely terrified of the outcome of Elbaph and where everyone is going to end up once Imu is finished. Because this isn't the end. This isn't the end of One Piece. It's just things are about to get way more crazy. I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to May and what it's going to offer. But that's all I got. To Subject, to Flip, Giuseppe, everyone who showed up here today, and Rowan as well. Hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Even consider supporting me on either membership here on YouTube or Patreon on Patreon, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. And because I know you're coming back anyway. Have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!